My fiancée borrowed my truck for the weekend saying, "Don't ask questions." I didn't. I checked the dashcam and caught her picking up her coworker at a hotel, so I destroyed both of their lives. Before the destruction, though, there was breakfast. We sat at the kitchen table, the silence thick enough to choke on. I was grading geology labs, marking up tectonic plate diagrams. Maris was ignoring her own work, eyes locked on her phone. Her thumbs tapped out a rapid, frantic rhythm that stopped instantly whenever I lifted my head. We had a rhythm, or so I told myself. 3 years together. Engaged for 3 months. We were the sensible couple, the ones who planned botanical garden weddings and discussed joint savings accounts. I watched steam rise from my mug, trying to ignore the grinding noise coming from the refrigerator. It was a small annoyance, much like the way she had been guarding her screen for weeks. I wanted to believe it was wedding stress. But the air between us felt brittle, ready to snap at the slightest pressure. "Johnny," she said, breaking the silence without looking up. She placed her phone face down, a calculated movement. "I need your truck this weekend." I paused, pen hovering over a student's mistake. Her car was newer than mine. "Where are you headed?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Girls' trip. Kelly organized it. Up in the mountains." She finally met my eyes, but her gaze didn't land on me. It focused on my forehead, a classic evasion tactic I taught my students to spot. "Why the truck?" I pressed. "My car is making that noise," she lied. "I had driven it yesterday. It ran perfectly. Plus, the weather looks bad. I don't want to get stuck." She walked to the sink to rinse a clean glass. "Just let me take it, okay? Please, don't ask questions. I want a relaxing weekend without explaining every mile." It was a test. If I pushed, I was controlling. If I yielded, I was the supportive partner she claimed to need. "Fine," I said, tossing the keys onto the table. The metal clattered against the wood. "Have fun with Kelly." Her relief was instant and insulting. She snatched the keys, leaned over to give me a peck on the cheek that felt like static electricity, and grabbed her bag. "You are the best. I'll text you when I get there." She didn't look back. I listened to the heavy thud of the deadbolt, feeling the house settle into a new, colder silence. I waited exactly 60 seconds. I heard the truck engine roar to life, the rumble vibrating through the floorboards. I walked to the window and watched her taillights disappear. Then I sat back down and opened my laptop. I wasn't the jealous type, but I appreciated data. I clicked the Dashcam app. It was a new system, installed after a hit, and run last month. High definition, cloud upload, and most importantly, interior audio, recording triggered by motion, even when the engine was off. The cloud sync progress bar crawled across the screen, a slow green worm eating away my denial. It hit 100% with a cheerful chime that sounded obscene in the quiet kitchen. I clicked the first file. The timestamp read 10:38 a.m. The GPS coordinates didn't show the winding roads of the northern mountains, as she had promised. They pointed to the Riverside Hotel, a concrete block in the downtown district, just 15 minutes away. My stomach turned over, a cold, heavy stone dropping. The footage was crisp, resolving every detail in 4K clarity. Maris sat in the driver's seat of my truck. idling in the parking garage. She wasn't checking directions or texting Kelly about hiking trails. She had the visor down. She checked her teeth, smoothed her eyebrows, and applied a fresh coat of the expensive red lipstick she usually saved for our anniversaries. She practiced a smile in the rearview mirror. It was a hungry, eager look I hadn't seen directed at me in years. A minute later, the passenger door opened. A man slid onto the leather seat I kept meticulously conditioned. I recognized him instantly. Ian, her department head, the man who had attended our engagement party with his wife, Daphne. He tossed a rolling suitcase into the back, right next to her duffel bag. He didn't say hello. He leaned across the center console and kissed her. It wasn't friendly. It was possessive, familiar, and devastatingly comfortable. My hands went completely numb on the trackpad. The audio kicked in, crystal clear thanks to the new microphone array I had installed. Did he buy it? Ian asked, buckling his seatbelt. Maris laughed. A bright, carefree sound that twisted a knife in my gut. He didn't even blink. I told him not to ask questions, and he just handed over the keys like a good little soldier. They merged onto the highway, heading north now. "Where does Daphne think you are?" Maris asked. Her hand rested casually on his thigh. "Medical equipment conference in Denver." Ian replied smoothly. I even printed a fake itinerary and left it on the counter. She's probably bragging to her mother right now about how hard I work. He squeezed Maris's hand. "We have the whole weekend. No reception. No interruptions." I watched my fiancée beam at him. She looked happier in that stolen moment than she had on the day I proposed. I felt like I was watching a stranger wearing Maris's face, mocking everything we had built. The conversation shifted as the city skyline faded behind them. "When can we stop hiding?" Maris asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Soon," Ian promised. "Once I get tenure in the fall, I'll have the salary bump. I need Daphne's income until the mortgage is refinanced. But after that, I'm gone." He outlined it like a research grant proposal. "You just need to keep Johnny happy until the lease is up. We need the stability while I secure the position." I paused the video. The frame froze on them, laughing mouths open, eyes bright with their secret. I sat there for a long time, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the laptop across the room. A strange, icy calm settled over me, replacing the nausea. I minimized the video player and opened a new browser tab. I didn't type Maris's name. I typed Dr. Daphne Miller, Riverside Veterinary Clinic. I needed to find a contact email. I pulled up the veterinary clinic's website. Daphne Miller's bio smiled back at me, professional and warm, holding a golden retriever. She wrote about compassion, integrity, and her supportive husband, Ian. I switched tabs to Ian's university profile. Dr. Ian Thorne, Associate Professor of Astronomy. His tenure review was scheduled for October. The man was building a career on the stars while digging a grave for his marriage in my truck. The disparity between her smile and his sneer on the video made my hands shake. Emotion was a liability now. I needed to be a geologist again, dealing in hard data and verifiable facts. I opened my video editing software and dragged the Dashcam files into the timeline. No music, no transitions, just cuts. Clip 1. The pickup. Clip 2, the kiss. Clip 3, the admission of the fake conference. Clip 4, the plan to use Daphne for money. It was a brutal, efficient montage of their moral bankruptcy. I exported the file simply as evidence. Finding the words for Daphne was harder than editing the video. I stared at the blinking cursor in the tau field. How do you tell a stranger her life is a lie? I kept it simple. Dr. Miller, I believe you deserve to know where your husband actually is this weekend. I attached the file. My finger hovered over the mouse. Sending this was the point of no return. Once it was out, the grenade was live. I clicked send before I could hesitate. That was the personal strike. Now came the professional one. I found the University Ethics Board contact page. Ian wasn't just cheating. He was sleeping with a direct subordinate. That was a clear breach of faculty conduct. I drafted a second email. Faculty misconduct report regarding Dr. Ian Thorne. I attached the raw unedited clips this time. The university wouldn't care about the heartbreak, but they would care about the liability. I sent it without a shred of guilt or hesitation. The house felt too small after that. I paced the living room, listening to the silence where Maris's laughter used to be. The geological diagrams on the table mocked me with their predictability. Plates move, pressure builds, earthquakes happen. Human pressure was messier. I checked the time. It was early afternoon. They were probably at the cabin now, unpacking my truck, completely unaware that their digital footprint had just walked into two very different inboxes. I poured the cold coffee down the drain. I expected silence for days. I assumed Daphne was at work, or maybe she wouldn't check her email until Monday. But my laptop pinged just 20 minutes later. The sound was sharp, like glass breaking. I froze. It could have been spam, or a student asking for an extension. But my gut told me otherwise. I walked back to the table, heart hammering against my ribs. The sender was Daphne Miller. I hadn't expected a reply. I expected a lawyer or pure silence. I opened the message. There were no caps lock rants. No denial. No begging. The body of the email was terrifyingly short. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I recognized the luggage. However, the video compression distorts the audio slightly. Do you have the raw audio files? I need to be 100% certain of the voice before I change the locks. She wasn't breaking down. She was loading her own gun. I sat down and hit reply. Sunday evening arrived with the heavy drag of a humid storm. I sat in the dark living room, the blinds drawn tight against the streetlights. At 7:14 p.m., the lock tumbled. Maris walked in, dropping her duffel bag with a heavy thud. She looked disheveled in a way that suggested exertion, though her hiking boots were suspiciously clean. "Babe, I am dead," she called out, kicking off her shoes. "Kelly hiked us 10 miles today. She didn't see me yet." "How was the trail?" I asked from the shadows of the armchair. She jumped, hand flying to her chest.
"Jesus, Johnny.
"You scared me." She laughed, but it was brittle. It was great. Just exhausting. She moved toward the hallway. "I need a shower." I didn't move. "Stop right there." The authority in my voice was foreign to her. She froze, turning slowly. "Excuse me." I held out my hand, palm up. "The ring. Give it to me." She stared at my hand like it was a weapon. "Is this a joke?" "I am tired, Johnny." She tried to brush past me. Banking on my usual passivity, I stood up, blocking her path to the bedroom. It's not a joke. The engagement is over. I paid for that diamond, and I want it back. Her face hardened into a scowl. You are being ridiculous. Did I forget to text you back or something? Don't be dramatic. She covered her left hand. I am not being dramatic, I said, my voice dangerously level. I am being observant. I watched you pick up Anne at the Riverside Hotel. The blood drained from her face so fast, she looked gray. I listened to you tell him what a gullible soldier I am. I heard the plan about his tenure and Daphne's money. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked small, stripped of her secrets. The dashcam records inside, Maris. I heard every single word. Her phone on the entryway table began to buzz. It vibrated against the wood, a harsh, drilling sound in the quiet room. Then it buzzed again, and again. A continuous stream of notifications. She glanced at the screen. Anne's name flashed repeatedly. You might want to answer that, I said coldly. He's probably trying to tell you that Daphne changed the locks. I sent her the raw footage yesterday. She knows everything. She knows he was using her. Maris looked at me with pure horror. You told his wife. Her voice cracked. You destroyed his life. I also emailed the ethics board this morning. I added. Sleeping with a subordinate is a firing offense. You're both done. She staggered back against the wall. I'll lose my job. My research fellowship. You can't do this. I didn't do it. I corrected her. You did. I just forwarded the documentation. Now, put the ring on the table. She slid the ring off her finger and slammed it onto the coaster. You are a monster. She spat. Tears finally spilling over. You have 30 minutes, I said, checking my watch. Pack a bag. If you are still on this property at 8 p.m., I'm calling the cops to have you removed for trespassing. She grabbed her bag and ran for the bedroom. I picked up my phone. I didn't call the police. I ordered a large pepperoni pizza. The following week was a blur of aggressive vindication. Monday brought the official announcement from the dean's office. It was vague, citing personnel changes, but the campus grapevine was specific and ruthless. Anne was escorted off the premises by security at 10 in the morning. By noon, his office door had been scraped clean of his nameplate. Maris didn't even wait for the axe to fall. She resigned via email, citing personal health reasons, effectively ending her academic career before it started. My phone buzzed on Wednesday afternoon with a message from a number I hadn't saved, but recognized immediately. Coffee. I think we should debrief. We met at a small roastery on the edge of town, far from the university district, where people might whisper. Daphne arrived precisely on time. She looked tired, wearing large sunglasses she didn't take off immediately. She ordered a black coffee. No sugar. There was no shaking hands. We just nodded, two soldiers meeting after a war. You look better than I expected, she said, finally removing her glasses to reveal red, rimmed but sharp eyes. I feel lighter, I admitted, surprised by the truth of it. Is that wrong? She shook her head slowly. It's survival. Anne tried to call me 40 times yesterday. She took a sip of the dark coffee. He's claiming entrapment. He says you manipulated the footage. I laughed, a dry sound. The raw files don't lie, He manipulated himself. I just turned on the lights. We spent the next hour dissecting their timeline, like forensic accountants. It was a morbid autopsy of our relationships. She told me about the late nights he claimed were for telescope calibration. I told her about the phantom grinding noise in Maris's car that never existed. We matched dates and excuses, building a complete picture of their betrayal. It was strangely therapeutic. We weren't just victims anymore. We were investigators closing a case. The shame I felt began to evaporate. I filed for divorce this morning, Daphne said, smoothing a wrinkle in the tablecloth with a flat hand. My lawyer is vicious. Ian thinks he's getting half the house. He's getting nothing but debt. She smiled for the first time, and it was a dangerous expression. He relied on my income for the mortgage. Without his salary, he can't even afford rent in this city. He's staying at the Starlight Motel on the highway. The image of the arrogant professor in a roadside dive was satisfying. What about Maris? She asked, her voice hardening. She's gone, I said. I think she is crashing on a friend's couch. I blocked her number and changed the locks. Daphne nodded, finishing her drink. Good. Don't let her back in. These people don't change, Johnny. They just find new people to trick. She stood up, checking her phone. I have to get back to the clinic. Animals are easier than people. Much easier, I agreed. Same time next week? I'd like that, she said. She touched my arm briefly. A gesture of solidarity that felt warm against my skin. I watched her walk away, feeling a strange sense of new possibility. I drove home with the windows down, letting the fresh air flush out the last of the rot. I pulled into my driveway, admiring the quiet house. I thought the worst was behind me. I thought the silence meant victory. I didn't know that silence is just what happens while the enemy reloads. 2 weeks of peace ended with the sound of crunching glass under my boot. I walked out to the driveway at 6 in the morning, coffee mug in hand, ready for a site survey. I froze. My truck looked like it had been mauled by a steel claw. Deep, jagged. Gouges ran from the taillight to the front fender, stripping the paint down to the gray metal. The driver's side mirror was shattered, dangling by a single black wire. But the centerpiece was the hood. The word LAR was carved into the aluminum. I didn't scream. I walked back inside and pulled up the exterior security feed. The timestamp was 3:24 a.m. A figure in a dark hoodie walked up the driveway, moving with unsteady, angry steps. She didn't look at the camera, but she didn't hide well enough. I paused the video when the motion light flared. It was Maris. I saw the glint of the key in her fist. She attacked the vehicle with a manic focus for 18 minutes. It wasn't just vandalism. It was an execution of my property. I called the police non-emergency line first, filing a report for felony criminal mischief. Then I called Maris. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice thick with sleep and defiance. What do you want, Johnny? She asked, as if I were the one bothering her. I want to talk about my truck, I said calmly. And the artwork you left on the hood. Silence stretched on the line. I don't know what you are talking about. She lied. I was asleep. Her denial was reflexive, pathetic, and entirely expected. I have you on 4K video, Maris, I said, cutting through her noise. The police have the footage too. Damages are estimated at $3,800. I let the number hang in the air. You have two options. Option 1. You bring me that amount in cash by Thursday morning. Option 2. I press for the maximum sentence on a Class D felony. I heard her breath hitch. I don't have that kind of money, she whispered. I am unemployed, Johnny. You know that. I didn't care. The desperation set in immediately. Please. There has to be another way, she pleaded. I can work it off. I'll come over and clean the house. I'll do your laundry for a year. I'll cook. The offer turned my stomach. She wanted to play housemaid to avoid consequences, trading dignity for immunity. I don't want you in my house, I said, my voice sharp. I don't want your cooking. I want the money to fix the damage you caused. Sell your laptop, ask your parents. Figure it out. My parents won't talk to me, she sobbed. They saw the ethics report. I waited, letting the silence crush her. Thursday, 9 a.m. In the lobby of my building, I repeated. If you aren't there with every cent. The detective executes the warrant. She sniffled, the sound of a cornered animal realizing the trap was tight. Fine, she choked out. I'll get it. But this ends it, right? We're done after this. I paused just long enough to be cruel. Just bring the money. Maris. She was 5 minutes early on Thursday. I met her in the lobby, standing near the security desk for witnesses. She looked wrecked. Her hair was pulled back in a greasy knot, and she wore a sweatshirt that looked slept in. She refused to make eye contact as she shoved a thick white envelope into my chest. Here, she muttered. Take it. I opened the flap. It was a chaotic mix of 20s and 50s, wrinkled and smelling faintly of stale smoke. I counted it slowly, making her watch. It's all there. She snapped when I finished the count. I had to sell my camera and my grandmother's necklace. She looked up at me, eyes wet with self-pity. I had to beg my sister for the rest. She took it out of her kids' tuition fund. I hope you are happy. She wiped her nose with her sleeve. You got your pound of flesh. Now call the cops and tell them to drop it. She turned to leave, her shoulders slumped in relief. Not so fast, I said. She froze, turning back slowly. What? I am not calling the police, I said, tucking the envelope into my jacket pocket. The report stands. Her face went slack. But I paid you. We had a deal. I shook my head. No. I gave you a choice. Pay for the damages or I sue you. You paid the damages, so I won't sue in civil court. I took a step closer. But the vandalism. That's a crime against the state. Buying me a new paint job doesn't erase a felony. You tricked me, she screamed, her voice echoing off the marble floors. The security guard looked up from his monitor, hand drifting to his radio. I gave you accurate legal options, I replied, feeling absolutely nothing. You assumed the rest because you think you can buy your way out of bad behavior. Sirens wail in the distance, getting louder. You are a monster, she spat, trembling with rage. No, I said, checking the door as a patrol car pulled up. I am just a man with a copy of the penal code. 6 months passed like a long, deep breath. The house finally felt like mine again. Mostly because Daphne had filled the empty spaces with her books and a shedding golden retriever named Courage. We were sitting on the couch, watching a documentary about deep sea vents, a bowl of popcorn balanced between us. It was boring, safe, and absolutely perfect. The drama of the spring felt like a distant, feverish dream. Then, the doorbell rang at 8:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. Courage barked, low and warning. My stomach tightened. I checked the security app on my phone, expecting a delivery driver or a lost neighbor. Instead, a ghost stood on my porch. Maris looked different than the last time I saw her in handcuffs. Her hair was dyed a harsh, dark brown, and she wore a dress that looked too thin for the October chill. She was shifting weight from foot to foot, checking her reflection in the dark window. "Who is it?" Daphne asked, pausing the TV. "Trouble," I said, standing up and moving to the door. I opened the door, but kept the screen locked between us. Maris flinched, then plastered a smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Johnny," she said, her voice breathless. "I know I shouldn't be here, but I needed to see you." She stepped closer, reaching for the handle. "I've been going to therapy. I've changed." But then Daphne walked up behind me, resting her hand on my shoulder. Maris's smile shattered instantly. She stared at Daphne's hand. "What is she doing here?" "She lives here," I said simply. Maris recoiled as if I'd slapped her face. "You are living together already?" She laughed, a high, hysterical sound. "That's rich. You ruin my life, get me a felony record, and then you just play house with his ex-wife." She pointed a shaking finger at Daphne. "You are just a rebound. You know that, right? He's only with you to get back at me. You are both pathetic." Daphne didn't even blink. She just took a slow sip of her sparkling water. "We're actually very happy," Daphne said, her voice cool and clinical. "And unlike you, I pay my own rent." Maris flushed a deep, blotchy red. "You don't know anything about us," she spat. "Johnny and I had a life. We had plans."
I made one mistake.
"You made 1,000 mistakes," I interrupted. "You lied for months. You destroyed my property. You aren't a victim, Maris. You are just a consequence happening to us in real time." I started to close the heavy wooden door. "Don't you dare shut me out," she screamed, slamming her hand against the screen. The mesh rattled.
I came here to apologize.
"To fix things." "But you are too busy swimming in your own self-righteousness to see it." She looked wild now, eyes wide and desperate. "You deserve each other. Too boring, safe people hiding from the world." She took a step back, turning sharply to storm off the porch. "I am done with you. I am done with all of this." She moved entirely too fast. Her heel caught the edge of the top step. It wasn't a graceful stumble. Physics took over instantly. She pitched forward, arms flailing to catch a railing that was just out of reach. Her momentum carried her down the 4 concrete stairs with violent speed. She didn't tuck and roll. She landed hard on the driveway pavement, her right arm taking the full force of the impact. The sound was sickening, like a dry branch snapping, a wet, sharp crack that echoed in the quiet night. Maris screamed. It was a raw, primal noise that cut through the neighborhood. She rolled onto her back, clutching her arm to her chest. Even in the dim porch light, the angle was wrong. Her forearm bent in a place where there was no joint, the bone pushing terrifyingly against the skin. "Help me," she wailed, rocking back and forth. Oh God, it's broken. It's broken? She looked up at us, tears streaming down her face. Waiting for the hero to rush down. I didn't move. Beside me, Daphne didn't move either. We stood in the doorway, looking down at the woman who had burned both our lives to the ground. There was no surge of adrenaline, no instinct to run and save her. There was only a profound, empty silence.
Please.
Maris sobbed, her voice breaking with pain.
Call an ambulance.
Johnny. Please? I looked at her broken arm, then back at her face. You are trespassing, I said. And you are making a scene. Daphne finally pulled out her phone. Maris gasped in relief, thinking salvation was coming. Yes? 911? Daphne said calmly, her eyes locked on Maris. I'd like to report an intruder at my residence. She tripped while fleeing the scene and appears to be injured. She paused, listening to the operator. Yes, send an ambulance. And police. We want to file a report. She hung up. We closed the door, locked the deadbolt, and went back to the couch to finish our popcorn. Red lights swept across our living room, walls like a disco strobe. We didn't get up. I heard the radio chatter of the paramedics through the glass, a mix of static and urgent commands. Maris was screaming, but the sound was muffled now, distant and fading. Daphne chewed a kernel of popcorn. Karma is loud tonight, she noted without looking away from the TV screen. I muted the volume to ensure the police were actually taking her away. The ambulance doors slammed shut with a heavy thud. The siren wailed, once before fading down the street. The silence that rushed back into the house felt heavy, like the air after a thunderstorm. I watched the digital clock on the cable box flip to midnight. The adrenaline should have been crashing, leaving me shaking, but my hands were steady. I felt a strange, hollow peace. Do you think she'll need surgery? I asked, purely academic. Daphne shrugged, resting her head on my shoulder. Compound fractures usually do. That bone looked expensive. 20 minutes later, my phone vibrated on the coffee table. It danced across the wood, buzzing like an angry hornet. I stared at the screen. It was an unknown number, but I knew exactly who it was. The hospital staff must have given her a phone. My thumb hovered over the device. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to leave it face down. But curiosity is a persistent itch. I picked it up. The message was long, a wall of desperate gray text. My arm is shattered in 3 places. The text read, I need surgery in the morning. I don't have insurance anymore because I quit the university. Johnny, please. I have nobody else to call. My parents won't answer. Just help me this one last time. I am scared. I read it twice. The words were meant to trigger the old Johnny, the provider, the fixer. They were designed to hook into the guilt I used to carry. I showed the screen to Daphne. She read it without blinking, her expression unreadable. She's betting on your ghost, Daphne said softly. The man who fixed her car and graded her papers. She handed the phone back to me. But that man doesn't live here anymore. The Johnny who would have rushed to the ER to pay for a cheater's surgery was dead. He died the moment he watched that dashcam footage. I looked at the plea for help one last time. It wasn't a request, it was a trap. If I replied, I was back in the cycle. I didn't type a response. I didn't offer sympathy or a lecture. I simply tapped the info icon, scrolled to the bottom, and hit block caller. The message vanished. I placed the phone back on the table. Ready for the next episode? I asked. Daphne smiled, scratching courage behind the ears. Hit play, she said. The documentary resumed, filling the room with blue light. The lie was that I had to save everyone. The truth is, some people need to save themselves.